Welcome to the second video of the Introduction to IFS, or Internal Family Systems Theory. In this video, I want to cover this with a lot more depth, which means understanding parts, understanding what are parts and what happens when they blend. And before we dive into the details of understanding parts, what are parts, etc., I want to just say a few things to set the ground right. Now, number one, we all have different parts. That's a very fundamental understanding in internal family systems, but I also think it's very easy to understand from a very grounded perspective. Number one, maybe look at yourself between two different activities. For me, one of the clearest activities I can choose for this is me between sports and cuddles. When I do sports, I'm very competitive. I want to beat people. I want to make sure I win, etc., etc. I'm in a completely different mindset and my body is behaving completely different than when I'm spending a very calm evening with my partner, with my girlfriend on the couch. I'm kind of two different persons. And the way to look at that in this model would be there are probably different parts of me that are active depending on one situation or the other. Another example for this can be decisions. Big moments where you make decisions in your life, like standing in a supermarket, deciding what to buy and what not to buy, and maybe having two voices, one going, "That chocolate cake is awesome," and another one going, "No, you should eat fruit." Two voices, maybe two parts. And I think a third perspective that can really help to understand that we all have different parts is that we all have certain automatic behaviors, certain patterns that even when we try to break them, like maybe the smartphone or certain eating behaviors, even when we try to do differently, we will just get into this automatic groove where something does it. And where even when we try to stop it, it's really hard to do it. Those are parts at work. So we all have different parts. And what is also really important to say with this is that we all have many, many healthy parts. A lot of the things that are going well in your life, a lot of the skills, a lot of the things that other people work hard for, and for you they're just like, they happen, are very probably parts of you that have learned to do certain things very well, very easily, basically automatically, and you have many, many healthy parts, and that's great. That's to be celebrated. The problem is we all, and you probably too, have some parts stuck in extreme roles, in extreme behaviors, in extreme ways of looking at the world that are not helpful and actually creating problems. And it is those parts that are stuck in those extreme roles that I want to look at with you through this internal family system lens, because those are really the parts that IFS as a theory and as a therapy deals with. So basically, IFS works with the parts that are stuck in extreme roles. And extreme roles can be protectors and exiles. And as I explore what are parts, how can we understand parts, I will do that mostly through looking at protectors, but the same principles, the same elements of what make parts parts also apply to exiles. And to understand what parts are, I want to use this drawing and kind of give you quite a bit of detail about it so you can understand what is symbolized here and so you can understand what parts are. And one quote, I've read it, I think both with Richard Schwartz and Jay Early, is that parts are a little bit like little people inside of us. And I think this can be a little bit weird to look at as like, I have little people in me. Do I have multiple personality disorder? All of those questions. But basically what this perspective of like little people means, at least the way I understand it, is parts have their own perspective on the world, meaning different parts will look at the same thing differently. One way to look at this could be a large group of people. And one part of you might look at those people as opportunities for getting to know different people, for having fun, etc. whereas other parts may look at the same group of people as dangerous and as challenging and to be kept away from. And these two parts see the same thing differently. Now, in addition to that, parts have their own motivation, meaning parts are trying to achieve something. They are trying to make something happen or avoid something in your life. And different parts are trying to make different things happen and avoid different things. One part might try to make sure you're safe in a relationship, and another part might want to make sure that you're listened to. And they can be at odds with each other because they do have different motivations. Parts also have different beliefs, meaning that different parts see the world, see you, see humans, see the work, etc. differently because they are looking at the world differently. One part might believe the world is a great adventure, and another part might believe that the world is deadly and dangerous. And through those beliefs, they will see the world differently. And also, when they are active in you, you will see the world differently. Parts have their own feelings, meaning specific parts, whenever they are active, whenever they are available or influencing your system, will make you feel differently. One part might feel very timid, and whenever that part is active in you, you start feeling very timid, whereas another part might be feeling angry or sad. And those different parts will bring with them different feelings to the system. Parts also have different memories. Literally, certain parts are holding on to specific memories that are not accessible when you're not connected to that part. And this is usually where it starts a lot of times in self-exploration, but also working with people. Parts have different behavior, meaning that parts will act and behave in consistent ways, but different parts behave and act differently. So whenever a certain part might be active or blended with you, you will show a certain behavior, and this will be happening over and over and over again because that is the behavior this part exhibits. So when we look at parts as little people, basically what we're saying is they are kind of like these little holes inside of us where this little hole sees the world a certain way, has certain motivation, beliefs, feelings, behaviors, etc. And another part might have very different ones. And all parts also have positive intent. This is a very important concept. I'm going to be talking about that a lot. But basically, every single part, no matter how it sees the world, wrong button. No matter how it sees the world, no matter what the beliefs are, what the feelings are, what the behavior is, within that framework, it is trying to do something positive for the system. It is trying to make sure that good things happen and bad things don't happen. Every single part. And that's a very important perspective on parts. Having talked about parts as little people, we get to the next really important element of the IFS theory of the psyche, which is basically what happens when parts take over. And there are two important words here to understand, which is activation and blending. Basically, the perspective in internal family system is that parts can be non-active at certain times. So there might be a part that is very task-driven. So we continue with these examples. A part that wants you to get everything done, that has the perfect to-do list, and that part might be active a lot in your life, but there will be times where it's not active, or there could be times, and that's not the way you behave in those moments. So parts can be not active, which is symbolized here as kind of being outside of this space in and around our body. But then parts can be active. And the first word to understand is activation, meaning this part, the doer, might be active and it's in our field of awareness, meaning it's influencing us. As a part is activated, it is in our field and it's basically going like, yeah, work, work. And maybe I feel the impulse to work. Maybe I hear a voice that says, yeah, you gotta do more. Maybe I think about all the things that I need to do, because basically when a part is activated, the feelings, thoughts, perspectives, and behaviors, including the motivation of the part, will start to influence us. I will start to think like the part. I will start to see the world in a certain way like the part, like, oh, there's so much I need to do. I will start to show the behavior of the part. I will start to feel this urgency that the part constantly feels. Ooh. So basically, when a part is activated, its thoughts, feelings, behaviors, etc. start to influence us. We start to display those, but as long as it's only activated, there's usually some space where even though the part wants me to act right now, I still might be able to not do it right now. Whereas the different experience would be blending, which is where the part takes over the self or the seat of consciousness. It really blends with us. It's not just active, it's we start to become the part. We start to really think, feel, see, and behave almost exactly like the part. It'll feel natural to us to do this. This is just the way I am. When the part is blended, this is just the way I am. And most of us have parts that are kind of chronically blended, meaning we think and act and feel, etc. like this part a lot of the time. So this would be blending, when the part has taken over the seat of consciousness and we really start thinking and feeling like that. Whereas the activation, let me go back a little bit here, is where the part is active, is influencing us, but it's not completely taken over. Now, with this established, I want to go back to the parts are like little people a little bit and add one layer to it, which is parts are a little bit like one-dimensional people inside of us. And what does that mean? With saying that parts are a little bit one-dimensional, I want to emphasize and clarify that humans, us, we have many different facets, many different parts. In different situations, we will look at the world very differently, etc., etc., whereas parts are more one-dimensional than that, meaning that they will only see specific things. They will have very specific thoughts and beliefs, very limited behavior. And one way to look at that, or a few ways, is that most parts, most protectors, are kind of stuck in time. So a lot of protectors we have are still using strategies that we've established years, sometimes decades ago, and they are still using them because that's the developmental level that this part had available when it started acting like that. So rather than seeing the world objectively or seeing, oh wow, I've grown so much, I have so many abilities right now, I could act differently. Parts are usually kind of stuck in time and have this very narrow, one-dimensional focus and one-dimensional behavior. One way looking at that from more a cognitive perspective, or also different psychological schools, would be that a lot of parts are kind of like if-then. So if the part perceives something, based on its beliefs, it will then act a certain way. And there is very little leeway between those, oh, I'm perceiving something, I'm seeing something, and the behavior. So it's kind of like if-then, using old strategies because stuck in time, and they are very often very fixated on their role, meaning they have a specific behavior they do for a reason. Protectors trying to keep pain away through the world or because of the exiles, but they keep on doing that role over and over and over again, and there's very little variance. The same principles apply to exiles, even though I will be talking about them much less here. They are drawn differently, and I will explain why in the exile video, but they also have their own perspectives. They see the world a certain way. They're often aware of specific pain or beliefs, etc. They have their own motivation. For exiles, it's often wanting to be seen. They have specific beliefs, often painful beliefs, old emotions, memories, and very limited behavior, which is often a lot about trying to be seen. And they are also stuck in time. They kind of have less of a if-then because they're not so much using strategies, but they're holding on to specific things from our past. So the same principles, even though in slightly different ways, apply to exiles. And just as I'll be talking about that in the next videos too, as soon as parts relax, meaning when parts aren't blended with us, and maybe they're giving enough space so that they are still a little bit active, but not very loud, as soon as parts relax, we can get access to the self. It's always underneath, which is what this whole theory and therapy is about this interplay between parts and the self. So that's it for video 2. I hope you have a better understanding of what parts are and why they are a little bit like little people inside of us. And in the next videos, I'm going to be covering protectors in detail, exiles in detail, and all of that. If this is helpful to you, please share it with people you think might benefit from this, and otherwise, see you in the next video.
You never know what's around the next corner.